All right, let's get right into it. You know, for millions of young people across India, a government exam isn't just a test. It's supposed to be the key to a stable future. But what happens when that key snaps in the lock? When the system that's meant to create opportunity just creates chaos instead? Well, that's exactly what went down in the summer of 2025.
And we're not talking about some small glitch here. We're talking about thousands of students, the very people who had poured their hearts into preparing for these jobs, suddenly pouring into the streets. They weren't just a little upset. They were furious. They were organized, and they were absolutely demanding to be heard.
So that's the big question, right? What on earth could push so many people who should be in study halls onto the front lines of a protest? Well, the answer isn't simple. It's a messy story of systemic failure, of promises being broken, and a complete and total breakdown of trust.
Now, to really get what's going on, you have to understand the Ssc. That's the Staff Selection Commission. For so many Indians, the Ssc is the gateway. It runs the exams for these super important government jobs, the kind that offer security for life. But in 2025, that promise didn't just bend, it completely shattered.
And this whole thing fell apart so fast. The trouble started on day 1, July 24th, the moment the exam period began. Over the next week, what was supposed to be a standardized professional test just devolved into a nationwide mess. And by early August, that chaos couldn't be contained anymore. It just exploded into the streets.
So, what actually went wrong? I mean, this was way more than a few minor hiccups. We are talking about a top-to-bottom complete failure of the examination process, and it hit students all across the country.
The whole situation was just a nightmare. I mean, just imagine this. You've studied for months, maybe years. You travel hundreds of kilometers to get to your exam center, only to be told, sorry, it's canceled. No warning. Or maybe you get inside, you sit down, and the server crashes. The software freezes. The biometric system won't even let you in. This wasn't a hypothetical. This was the reality for thousands of people.
As all these horror stories started bubbling up online, one name just kept appearing over and over again: Educity. This was the new company, the vendor, that had been hired to manage this massive online exam. And pretty soon, all the blame for the server crashes, the software failures, the whole logistical nightmare, it was all laid right at their feet. And here is where frustration just turned into pure fury. Because protesters started digging, and they found reports that EduQuality wasn't just any company. It had allegedly been blacklisted recently and, get this, was even linked to the infamous Viapom scam. For the students, this wasn't just incompetence anymore. This felt like a serious crisis of integrity.
So, faced with this total system failure and this huge crisis of trust, the students felt like they had no other choice. What started as thousands of individual frustrations quickly became one unified, powerful movement that took the fight from their exam halls straight to the streets of the capital.
They called it the Delhi Chalo campaign, which basically means, let's go to Delhi. And they did. Thousands of students, even joined by their teachers, all mobilized. They gathered at these major protest sites like Jantar Mantar and the CGO complex, turning them into the headquarters for their dissent.
And of course, this fight wasn't just on the ground. It absolutely blew up online. You had hashtags like hashtag Ssc mismanagement and hashtag Ssc system Sudaro, which means fix the Ssc system, going totally viral. Social media became this incredible tool for sharing evidence, for organizing, and for demanding justice. Now, as tensions in Delhi got higher, the story of what happened next gets a little murky. You have conflicting reports. On one side, protesters and their supporters talked about a police lathi charge, a baton charge, that they say led to injuries and people being detained. On the other side, the Delhi police denied that any excessive force was used, saying only brief detentions took place. It's important to know both accounts.
But here's the thing. This protest was about so much more than just being angry. These students came prepared. They had a clear plan. They weren't just there to shout about the problems. They were there to offer a real roadmap to fix this broken system for good.
And their 5-point plan makes a lot of sense. First, they want an independent investigation to figure out exactly what happened. Then, based on that, a fair re-examination for every single person affected. Third, real accountability for the vendor. Fourth, a commitment to full transparency. No more secrets about results and answer keys. And finally, all of this should lead to permanent systemic reform to make sure this never, ever happens again. It's a really thorough call for change.
When you zoom out, you realize this is about so much more than one messed up test. It really strikes at the heart of a very basic promise that any society makes to its young people. The promise of a fair shot, a level playing field.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. It's about faith. The faith that millions of people put in these public institutions to be fair, to be competent, and to be honest. And when that faith gets broken so spectacularly, it's not just a logistical problem anymore. It's a full-blown social crisis.
So it leaves us with this huge question. A question that's not just for the SSC in India, but really for any system anywhere. When a system fails its young people this badly, what does it actually take to rebuild something as sacred as trust?